Hello, my fellow music lovers. I'm Allison Hagendorf, and welcome to the show. This is where we celebrate the universal love of music and the rock and roll spirit that lives in each of us. I just want to thank all of you for your outpouring of love and support. As soon as we launched this show 1 week ago today, we have so many incredible guests lined up that I cannot wait to share with you. Also, thank you to those of you who answered my question about how you feel about wearing the band t-shirt to go see the band. And it seems like most of you agree with me that it is indeed a proud badge of honor. And I continue this conversation with today's guest, Tom Morello. And I feel like whatever Tom says kind of goes. Let's dive in. I'm so glad you're here. My guest today is my friend, and not only a guitar virtuoso, but he actually created his own signature sound. The great Tom Morello is here today. You know him from Rage Against the Machine, Audioslave, Prophets of Rage. We talk about his latest song, Gossip, with global superstars Måneskin. We actually talk about how to pronounce Måneskin. We talk about how he chooses all of the artist collaborations he does, his nearly 100-year-old mother, the greatest rock star of all, Mary Morello, the future of Rage Against the Machine, and his secret collaboration with Post Malone. It all starts now. Tom, huge congratulations, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nomination for Rage Against the Machine again.
Thank you. I think this is the 5th nomination, so I appreciate that. We'll see how we do.
I will tell you, as a proud voter, I do vote for Rage Against the Machine every single year.
Well, then you can't be blamed for us not getting it.
I can't be blamed. And also Soundgarden.
It's great. Yeah. There's a little Iron Maiden on there too. So, and White Stripes. There's some.
That's right. Yeah, it's a good class this year. So it's sort of a win-win. But I wanted you to know I will be voting for you yet again.
I appreciate your pre-commitments to that. That's nice.
I'm all in. By the way, I wore this shirt for you.
Okay,
long live rock music.
Exactly. We got to keep shouting it from the mountaintops.
Well, you have a strong T-shirt game too, so I just felt like I wanted to match
I'm wearing a Chicago. This is a Chicago radio station, which I'm sure doesn't exist anymore, but was a proud banner waver for rock and roll for decades and decades.
That's great. We got to represent. Yeah. I'm one of those people, and I'm proud of it, that I wear the band's T-shirt to go see them play. Not only am I not ashamed, I'm like, yes, here I am. I'm committed.
Why would one be ashamed to wear the band's T-shirt to go see them play?
Like, why is that a thing? I
never knew it was until this moment right now. Here's the more controversial one: is when you're the band, do you wear your T-shirt when you play? I think there's some bands that can get away with it, and some, like, I think Motley Crue can wear Motley Crue shirts when they're playing Motley Crue shows, and everything's cool. But I think if Eddie Vedder wore a Pearl Jam shirt when he was playing, it would make me think twice.
That's interesting. That's some
regional prejudice.
Would you wear a Rage shirt to one of your shows?
I would not.
You would not?
I would not.
But you're right with Motley Crue. Totally, anything goes.
It's fine.
There.
Poison, they can wear their own shirts.
Totally
and everything.
Fine.
Accepts it. Yeah.
That's an interesting assessment. What about Måneskin? First of all, is that how you pronounce it? Is it Måneskin?
Let me tell you. No, it is one of the most interesting success stories in the history of rock, because it's a rock and roll band from Italy with an unpronounceable name that has become very successful. So that's a lot. They had a lot going against them to start with, and yet they rocketed up the charts. I believe it's Måneskin, as if it's M-O-N, because the band is from Italy, but the word is Danish. It means something like moon shining.
Right. So it's mixed language, mixed culture.
Måneskin. It is. But I do have to say, like, it's a very, like, I played on the Måneskin song Gossip, and have been sort of making the rounds with them as their new record Rush has come out. I didn't know much about the band. They had that big song Beggin', which was like a
cover.
Multi-billion streaming song and whatnot, but I didn't know much about the band. So a friend of mine's kid was a big Måneskin fan. So when they were playing at the Roxy, a year or more ago, they asked me if I could help facilitate, getting into the show. I'm like, of course, like, fine, whatever. I've said, I'm not going to the show. Let me just make that clear. I'm not going to the show.
I will not be attending.
I ended up taking them the sound check and meeting the band in the parking lot and hang out. They were just lovely and big fans of rock, and sort of knew my catalog inside and outside, and
Aw.
we exchanged numbers. And when they were in town, in the interim, I had seen them play like on Saturday Night Live and some shows. I'm like, this is like a real band. Like, it's not like, I didn't know what it was. When someone has a pop hit, one suspects there's 54 songwriters and a producer doing all that stuff this day and age. But I went over, they were recording their record in LA, and I went over to the house and we jammed a few days. And I was like, they can really fucking play, and they're like lovely people, and we just became really good friends, and I jammed on that song, and so it's nice for them to have it as the single.
I love hearing that, because you're right. It was an explosion. It was like an overnight explosion worldwide. It was an anomaly. And when I was at Spotify, I was supporting them 100%, putting them on every playlist. It was just sort of like an undeniable fun feeling. Song after song was just a blast. And then, their fashion sense and their whole persona, it was just so fun and refreshing. But that's great to hear that not only are they talented, but great people as well. And I'm glad that you guys get on.
It's been great hanging out with them, and just sort of seeing. On the one hand, I think they're all like 22 years old, but they were busking on the streets of. Some of them know each other since they were 12. When they were 15 years old, the four of them were playing on the streets of Rome for change. So this is not a band that like was manufactured by some game show, some talent show or something. Like, they've really been friends for their whole lives. And at 22, they're playing stadiums in Italy, and they have like a presence, and they're not afraid of it. And they are unapologetically a real rock and roll band, unapologetically a really like sort of sexy sex band, and they have ideas too. And it's like, it's crazy that it's an Italian band in this day and age that is one of the standard bearers for rock and roll, but I'm all for it.
And it's important to know that they're the real deal, because some people hear, they were on a television show, and they like get an eye roll, but no, that was just the platform that helped propel all the work they were already doing.
That's correct. And it's a different television show. Like, it's a television show that U2 has played and that Bruce Springsteen has played. And it's not like, I don't know what the would be here, but it's not like I don't know much about the show, other than the fact that all those bands have played it, and it's one thing that helped them out. So I'm all for it.
And I'm so glad it did, because it's important. They're waving the flag. They're just, it's like a jolt of that rock and roll spirit and that rock and roll energy.
It introduces to young, kids, 10, 11, 15, 17, 20, whatever, to, they're nominated for, when's the last time a rock band has been nominated for Best New Artist at the Grammys?
Yes, you're right.
You know what I mean? And so it's just,
I think it was Greta Van Fleet. Yeah, I think it was.
It's a band with guitars in it, that is now the favorite band of 12-year-olds, competitive with K-pop bands and pop bands and rap artists and whatnot.
I watched your performance on Fallon. It was so fun. It was such a great show.
Yeah, it's nice I've rocked Fallon and with a lot of different bands, and it was a real blast playing with those guys.
I actually went to your performance on Kimmel when you played with Portugal the Man, and we had time to kill. We went to Dave and Buster's for hours.
That's one of the great upsides of playing Kimmel is Dave and Buster's, which is a video game place, if you don't know, is right across the street. So you can spend time, you go have a beverage and rock some pinball machines.
We did. That was a good time. We'll have to do that again. I feel like you have become like the king of collaborations. Of course, Atlas Underground, all of your albums.
Yeah.
But what I love about them is that in your collaborations, it's sort of the full spectrum of type of artists and genre and spirit and culture. How do you even begin to decide who you're going to collaborate with?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've made of whether it's Rage, Audioslave, Prophets, couple of I made like 22 records in my career, and then hundreds of collaborative singles and things like that. And it's always been like, I love like learning new things, but seeing where applying my ideas and talents in different situations, like where that leads me. It's great to like be in a band and you're in a band with the same people and you write songs together and have that path. But unexpectedly, like I've learned so much from both Pete Seeger and Wu-Tang Clan. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And from Joe Strummer and from Metallica, and so it's just, I just love kind of, if there's a studio door, I'm always happy to kind of walk through it. And especially like on the Atlas Underground records, which I've made three of now. I mean, the guiding light from those was trying to push myself as a guitar player and inject electric guitar and guitar soloing and wild guitar playing and big riffs into the current conversation. So playing my style of electric guitar and see how it morphs when I'm rocking it with sort of EDM beats or with a folk group or with sort of someone who's more of a singer-songwriter, something that has maybe even sort of a more of a pop thing, like the Portugal the Man, the song I did with Portugal the Man. That's the first time in a long time where there was like an electric guitar solo on the radio.
Yes.
We made room.
Thank you for making that happen. Yeah.
We made 8 bars. We made 8 bars for the kids to hear a guitar solo on the radio. So on the one hand, it's kind of missionary work in that way. It's like, I believe that the electric guitar's, greatest days are not behind it. And that there is a potential future for that awesomeness of distorted electric guitar to infuse itself in the years and decades to come.
You had shared with me, sort of on the DL, you had collaborated with Post Malone at some point.
Yes. Post Malone and I have a fat jam that I can't get him to finish. So if you can, let me tell, this is maybe now 4 years ago or something. We went into the studio one night and I had heard that he was like a fan of rock. And so I went by, and he's a lovely dude. First of all, he's just a lovely, lovely person. He's trippy, and he has, like, at the time he had, how like some people have like guitar techs or drum techs. He has like a Coors Light tech. So there's a guy whose sole job it apparently was to just make sure that there's a stack of cold Coors Light.
That's incredible. Life goals for me right there.
Anyway, we worked on a pretty sick jam that to me felt like could be, for him, like his Beat It, when Michael Jackson, a big pop star, paired with Eddie Van Halen and made something that no one had expected. I was like, this could be your Beat It, dude. He just won't finish the song. So he's still a lovely dude. I see him from time to time, like, you're still dropping the ball on that one. He's like, yeah, man, I know I'm going to do that. I'm like, okay.
Well, hopefully this will resurrect it, because I heard it and I concur that it's awesome.
It's sick.
Also, he can sing. I don't know if people realize what a great singer he is.
Yeah, and he's like I guess, we were sitting around. It took about like 4 hours of sitting around with Coors Lights before we did any recording, and and I was like, I learned that his first show that he ever went to, his dad took him to Korn. So the first time he ever saw a show, it was Korn. I was like, that's interesting, and it explains on the one hand why he could rock a song with me that was potent, but it does not explain why he has not finished the damn song so the world can enjoy it.
All right. Well, I'm putting it out to the world. Tom Morello and Post Malone, the song needs to come out.
Let me know.
Another collaboration you did, which I loved, is, of course, with your son Roman and the great Nandi Bushell, who is another guest on this show.
Yeah.
The Children Will Rise Up. So tell me about you connecting with Nandi and Roman.
Sure. So I was a fan of Nandi via her kind of Instagram work and her awesome. At the time, she was, I think when I first became aware, she was maybe like 10 years old, something like that. And she had these awesome videos where she's playing the drums and screaming her head off, and just like the joy of rock and roll. She is inhabited with the Holy Spirit of rock and roll in a way, which was just so awesome. Anyway, during the pandemic, she reached out to me, and because I think I'd sent her, she had covered a Rage or an Audioslave song, and I had sent her a guitar. And so we sort of became Insta friends. And she reached out and said, do you want to do a song together? I said, I would love to do a song with you. But what you don't know is I got a 9-year-old kid under I'm the second best guitar player in my house right now. So I've got my son, Roman, who's like, why don't you guys do a song together? And they did. They wrote that song. They wrote the song together, and I just produced it. And it's called The Children Will Rise Up. And she, plays bass and drums and sings on it. And they sort of collaborated on the lyrical content, and he plays an awesome shredding guitar solo. And we got Jack Black to be in the video. And it was really like during pandemic times when there's not a lot of awesome going on. That was one bit of awesome that happened.
Did you have any advice to share with Nandi or Roman as they're aspiring musicians and coming?
I gotta tell you, I'm inspired by them in some ways, like sort of like seeing that the light, like it's a reminder of when the reason why you first pick up an instrument, and like how on fire you can be when you first learn, some of the licks from the Stairway to Heaven solo. Or I can see that like when she does those cover videos, whether it's Tool or Foo Fighters or Rage or whatever, like you just kind of go like, oh my gosh, I can play this too. Maybe I can write something like that too. So, I mean, as far as my only, I try to get out of the way for the most part and let the children rise up. But I might have made some suggestions with regards to editing and maybe the chorus, maybe we do the riff at the top here and whatnot. But for the most part, it was really all their it was all their vibe.
I love that. And I take notes from you because we are both parents of 2 sons.
We are rock parents. Yes.
We are rock parents. Now, Roman is into rock and roll.
Yeah.
But Rhodes is not?
Yeah, he's a teenage, like he introduces me to, both of them do, but he introduces me to, every day it's some new hip hop artist I've never heard of. And he explains to me why it's significant to him. And it's great. It's like, I honestly, I can't keep track, but it's like he has a deep catalog of knowledge of contemporary music. And, it is funny though, like every once in a while, because of, formats like TikTok and thing, where in the same way that like the Guitar Hero video game used to bring songs from the past to children of the present.
Exactly.
TikTok does stuff like that as well. I'll tell you, it was the one thing that's funny that you can relate to is the song I did with Grandson. Like I did a remix of the Grandson of the big hit, and one day I heard my son like playing it and sort of singing along to it. And I'm like, what do you listen to? He's like, this is his Grandson song on TikTok. I'm like, but Dad plays on that song. He's like,
it's my song, right?
He's like, you do not. He's like, you do not. Like, there's no possible way that you could. I'm like, I swear to you, dude.
Wait, this is the best story.
I'm like, that's me. Listen, that sounds. He's like, please. I'm like, I don't know why would I lie about trying to be on a TikTok song with Grandson for you? But and then they were like, they kind of like, wow, that's weird. Why would Dad be on something that's like that? It's weird. So anyway.
My God, that brings me so much joy also because, I think I was the original person that connected you and Grandson.
You did.
I'm so proud of.
You absolutely did.
Aww.
He's a great dude. I love that guy.
See, that's where I come in. I don't play guitar, but I'm a missionary in that I'm with you. I want to evolve the genre. I want to connect generations.
You're the connective tissue. You're the connective tissue. You really are. You really are. But I was going to say like how Guitar Hero used to make songs, sort of like a song from Heart or Kansas would all of a sudden be every 12-year-old's favorite song. One song that has made a big impact in my house and in the car, and I have to listen to about 40 times a day, is Hotel California. And I'm not sure how they got on that or what route it came in, but the other day my son was explaining like how the production was brilliant in that song, and then he was for real. Then he was comparing it to like he played me like a Harry Styles song. He said, "Listen to how they've taken elements from the production of Hotel California and how they've used those elements, and it's one of the big Harry Styles hits." And I was like, well, all right.
That must make you so proud.
Yeah,
it's really awesome. Special.
Pretty awesome.
So we get inspiration from our kids, but also we have to talk about Mary, your mother, the ultimate rock star who's turning 100.
God willing, Mary Morella will be 100 on October 1st. She's 99 now, and she weathered, the pandemic, and she and I still do our Lithium radio show weekly, and she contributes to that, and she's doing all right. 99 is not 79 or 59, but she's, it's just great to, see today. I'll be taking her to her grandson's basketball playoff game.
It's so cool.
Pretty cool.
She's a living legend, and people might not realize that how active and what a rock star she is, and she really inspired a lot of your activism.
Sure.
And tell me more about how she has and continues to inspire your drive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's a very unique person. She grew up in a small coal mining town in central Illinois. The one thing that everybody in town had in common was that no one ever left. Until Mary Morella. She was born in 1923, and so, during the Great Depression, our family was one of the houses where hobos were welcome when they came off the train, to get a meal on the back porch. In her 20s, she helped the Ward Drive bond, against Nazi Germany and sort of collecting rubber and things like that. Then she left and she became a foreign student advisor at University of Illinois. that's where she met people from different countries and decided she wanted to teach elsewhere. Right after World War II, while the rubble was still burning, she taught in Wiesbaden for 5 years in Germany. Then she taught in Spain. She taught in Japan. She traveled with no budget. She would be like on a tramp steamer because she just wanted to go around the world and see what Indonesia might look like. She ended up in Kenya where she met my dad, and she was teaching there as well, and then came back. And I grew up in a small town in Illinois, but she never ceased her sort of tireless activity of mind and body. She was involved in the civil rights movement with the Urban League. She ran an anti-censorship organization called Parents for Rock and Rap, which was the counter to the Tipper Gore's PMRC, which was trying to censor metal and hip hop at the time. And it's just been she was when she was teaching high school. After she finished teaching high school, she would go over to the Salvation Army and teach homeless people and recovering addicts to get their GEDs. It's like it just was like. It never was kind of, oh, my mom's inspiring me. I kind of thought everybody's mom was like that. So you get over and you realize like nobody's mom is like that. Nobody's mom is like that, And, she always would introduce my various bands through the years with a very colorful introduction. I was telling somebody yesterday, was talking about sort of reminiscing about Lollapalooza. And at the 1993 Lollapalooza, when Rage Against the Machine was it was before we were an unknown band. We were the first band on stage. And my mom, her organization, the anti-censorship organization, had booths at all of the Midwestern shows. So my mom was like a participant in, the third year of Lollapalooza. And we were in New Orleans, and Timmy and Brad the night before had been arrested because they had tried to intervene when cops were harassing a homeless man. And New Orleans is shady. And so we had to pay money as a fine to the cop. Anyway, so my mom was there, and so she introduced the band the next day. This is like Lollapalooza is a phenomenon. Everybody's there. There's like 60,000 people there at 1:30 in the afternoon when we're going on. This little old lady, retired school teacher, has a microphone on stage and leads the crowd in a chant of "fuck the New Orleans police." Just sort of swinging the microphone back and forth. And I'm like, people are like, wow, that lady was kick ass. I'm like, that lady's my mom.
Your mom jokes have a whole new meaning with Mary Morello because she's so exactly. Cool. You actually want to be like your mom, and
exactly. Yeah, I'll send her your regards. I'll see her later today.
Please do. Yeah. I also want to brag about you for a second because you have a political science degree from Harvard, and you thought you wanted to be in politics at one point.
Yeah, well, not so much electoral politics, but I always knew that I wanted to be involved in activity to change the world. Mm-hmm. I did Leverage when I first moved to Hollywood and was unemployable. My only work experience had been working at the Bristol, Wisconsin Renaissance Fair. So I had like an Ivy League degree, but my only abilities, I could juggle. I could do a little fencing, and I knew a couple of pirate shanties, which I couldn't. I got turned down from selling, Iron Maiden T-shirts at a head shop on Hollywood Boulevard. I'm like, but I'm an Ivy League grad. They're like, you don't know how to make change.
Yeah.
So, but I did the job that my degree was able to get me. I worked for several years as the scheduling secretary for United States Senator Alan Cranston, and while that paid the bills for a short period of time, it did cure me of the idea of ever wanting to be involved in sort of mainstream politics.
Right. So you turned to your music instead.
Yeah.
And how did you and Zach and the band initially connect?
It was just through a fortunate set of circumstances. I had played in a band called Lockup prior to Rage Against the Machine, and Brad had in the waning days of Lockup, Brad Wilk had auditioned for the band. And we became friends. I just thought he was a great drummer. It wasn't a match, but I loved him. And so the second that band broke up, I was sitting on the phone and the singer called me up to say, hey, the band's over with. And I hung up the phone and I called up Brad.
That's cool.
On the same couch. And we connected, and it was just over the course of some time through various musical acquaintances that we finally all got in a room together, which was 30 years ago. The first time we were in a room, I think, was August 31st, 1991.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. And with you guys, we've talked about this before, that the chemistry was innate. And there's this video, I watched it again, where you guys are playing on like this college quad during lunch. And basically what you're watching is Rage Against the Machine. It really just sounds just like you guys. Did you
Yeah.
know in that moment that you're like, oh, this is it? Like, this is special?
No, I mean, it's hard to say because it's like there was the one thing that I cannot emphasize enough is that the band had zero commercial ambitions. I had already had a record deal and it sucked. My life got a lot worse after having a record deal than when I was just playing the clubs and kind of having a nice time playing music with friends. And so, you know, the band did sort of come out fully formed in a way. And there is it's at Cal State Northridge, the video that you're referring to. It was the first public. We had played a living room party before them and an open mic night at Al's Bar before then. But that was the first time we played. And it's a funny video because it's our 17-year-old friend was, had a tripod and the thing and it's set up there. And you could see it's like it's a lunchtime. It was probably like the lunchtime concert series. So and people are like walking by like with their lunch trays
like
and
trays.
Rage Against the Machine is like thrashing wildly on the stage. My favorite part, if you do go back to the video, you see there's these two guys that they stop to watch. They're like metal dudes, and they have the Hesher hair and whatnot, and you can tell that they're indecisive. The camera's like behind their heads. You can tell they're indecisive. They're like, this is not. It's not their cup of tea, and there are elements that you can tell they find off-putting. But it's also rocking. And so that you can tell you really are seeing the moment. And this happened in, all over the world and with different bands, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, whatever someone's entry drug was to what would become alternative music or hard alternative metal or whatever. But you could see they're having their moment right there. And their moment, their epiphany comes at the end of the song, Bullet in the Head, where they've been they had nothing better to do. Class doesn't start for 25 minutes, so they ate their lunch or smoked their weed or whatever. So they're just like waiting, killing time. But the end of Bullet in the Head comes on, and you see them, and they kind of like their two heads kind of like look at each other like this, and then start bobbing in unison.
Oh, that's the best! You got them,
and you can tell like, oh, that's it. And that moment sort of replayed across the continents over the course of the next couple of years.
I have to go back and watch that specifically.
It's funny. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
You've called Zach the punk rock James Brown, which is so cool. Does he know that? Is he flattered by this?
You'd have to ask him.
Yeah, but I think that's really cool. He is one of the great frontmen, and thank God you guys got to play these most recent dates together.
Sure.
How did the Madison Square Garden shows feel in particular?
Well, I got to tell you, it was playing, 5 nights at Madison Square Garden was very significant. The day of the first show, I had my family in town. And so we went up to the old apartment that my mom and I lived in Harlem at West 142nd and Riverside, which at the time was a pretty gnarly neighborhood. Now it's a little bit more gentrified, but still a little gnarly. And I brought them to the doorstep where we lived and where my mom, when I was a baby, my mom used to bring me out in the stroller and walk down to the river. And then, here we were 50, whatever years later, we drove straight from there to the first of 5 nights, sold out at Madison Square Garden. And, and I think they kind of I called my mom from the steps too and said, I'm back at the spot and tonight we're going to go do this thing. And so that was pretty meaningful. I played at Madison Square Garden a few times before. Audioslave played there with Bruce and Springsteen a couple of times. It was the first time that Rage had played there. And when I was in my previous band, Lockup, every band has kind of the arc of their story. And near the end of that band's arc, we were on a desperately miserable tour. We couldn't afford the guitar tech anymore. We couldn't afford the tour manager anymore. It's the 4 of us in a van. The record company hasn't returned a phone call in a month and a half. Yeah. You're out there playing gigs with hardly anybody there. It was my birthday. We're playing a place called Wilkes Bar or Wilkes-Barre. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. Pennsylvania. It was it was like a hotel, sort of a hotel lounge kind of gig. The opening band, that whoever they were that night, played. When they left, like them and their girlfriends left, and there was literally no one in the room. Like there's a waitress and a monitor guy. Thank goodness the monitor guy was there so we could hear ourselves clearly. And we're just sort of going like, how many songs do we have to play to get our $45 or $100 or whatever to try to get to the next city? And we were, all sharing a room, and afterwards sitting around just miserable. I had never smoked a cigarette in my life. The bass player used to smoke all the time, kind of drive me crazy. I said, give me one of those. And he said, are you going to
Aw.
smoke? He said, are you going to smoke a cigarette? I said, no, I'm not going to smoke a cigarette. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this cigarette in my guitar case and I'm going to smoke it the night that I headline Madison Square Garden.
Oh my God, I have chills.
And I didn't save the cigarette, ridiculously, but someone loaned me one. And I didn't smoke it, but I had it on hand as sort of a connecting the that feeling of sort of loss and desperation, but ultimately some sort of hope, and then the weird way that the world works at the end of the day. So it was kind of a nice moment.
Let me ask you, I mean, being in a band, you got signed and then kind of hitting rock bottom as you could in that band. How did you know? What was that intrinsic motivation or that headspace? It was like, well, I'm going to be playing the Garden, so this is all good. It's part of the journey.
I didn't know I was going to be playing the Garden. Let me just make that very, very clear.
Well, you manifested.
I didn't manifest it.
You were determined.
Yeah, I was determined, but I will say this: in some ways, the best thing that ever happened was that band getting dropped. Because when I moved to Hollywood, I moved with the ambition to be a rock star. I moved with the ambition to make albums. I moved because I read in Hit Parader and Cream magazine that you had to move. You had to relocate where the A&R people were and get a band together and do a showcase. Like there was sort of a way that it happened,
Yeah.
And I did that, and I did all of it. And I got an incredible, against all odds, I had been out there, like 4 years, and my band got signed, and everybody back home thinks you're a multimillionaire. I'm like, you don't know, dude. I still have 6 roommates. We still can't, pay rent. But then, we did everything that the record company asked. Like the producer kind of wanted to soften the sound. The Laka was a band that was maybe a little bit more. It was kind of like somewhere between Living Colour and Aerosmith. It was kind of funky and hard, but the record company wanted to make it more into what you might know as sort of latter day Chili Peppers, like sort of more radio pop kind of things. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't like any of that. That's not for me. But we did it, and when we went on promotional tours and kind of did the stuff, and because we they must know best. Like they must know best. This record company has Guns N' Roses, this one and that one. They must know best. And when we got dropped, I was like, okay, I'm never going to be a rock star. I'm never going to make albums, but I can't help but being a musician. And I made a solemn vow that I would never play another note of music that I didn't believe in.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I held true to that. And that's how Rage Against the Machine, my contributions to Rage Against the Machine, Audioslave, The Night Watchman, my work with Springsteen, every record since has come about is by holding true to that and not caring where the chips fall.
Authenticity is key. That's the takeaway. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that was the surprise, because it's like, oh, the experts didn't, it turns out they didn't know. They didn't know.
They weren't the experts.
It turns out they weren't the experts. What was the expert opinion was the authentic opinion of artistic expression of who you really are. And that's the thing that ultimately connected, between the 4 of us and Rage, and then the 4 of us in Audioslave, and the 5-6 of us with Prophets of Rage, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know who is a Rage Against the Machine expert? Guy Fieri. Because he was at every single show. The mayor of Flavortown, there he was, rocking out to every Rage show. Did you know about that he kept showing up?
I did see him. I will say this, though, that I didn't have any idea who he was. I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't know. He was just sort of like a colorful person. I think he's a friend of Brad's, and I would see him backstage in the hallway, and I'd kind of give him a kind of a COVID-free fist bump. I'm like, what's up, dude? Later, as the tour went on, I was like, people were like, oh, that guy's like a chef or something. Like, all right on. I'm glad he likes the band. It's cool. I don't know.
He was committed, though. He was like, I love that.
Yeah.
I love finding out fellow fans,
Yeah.
Let's talk about your dangerous situation while you got taken out by security while you were on the stage. That was very scary.
That was a dangerous situation. It was a first too, where the second night we were playing in Toronto, during the song "Killing in the Name," an exuberant fan managed to rush past security, which I guess it would, in that case, it was security with a lowercase s because the kid was on stage in 2 seconds flat.
You were not secure. Yeah.
I was doubly unsecure because that was like local security that he rushed past, and then our security guy to try to save the band from harm gave the kid a shove off the stage, but the security guard's momentum carried him into me and knocked me off of the stage.
Oh my God.
During the song, and it was really one of those moments where I don't know if you've ever been in a car crash or something where like the world slows down and you kind of go, this might be it. Like 1 second I was playing, the verse of Killing the Name, and the next second fortunately it was kind of a coin flip, because at the front of the stage there's speakers, like it's speaker space, speaker space, speaker space. And fortunately we landed on a speaker. If I had gone down in the space, I would have gone, 7-8 feet down head first with a 325-pound dude, pile driving my spine into the ground. So that would have been I was totally fine. I was completely unharmed. My guitar was unharmed. I popped up, we finished the song, but there might have been
the rock gods were looking out for you, because you watched the video. It's
we might
scary.
have had to have a meeting afterwards about protocols.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're okay. I remember I hit you up like right after that. I was like, please tell me you're okay, because the video looked gnarly.
The video looked gnarly. I was totally fine.
Yeah.
The funny thing was, like, the kid, like if you see he's like part gazelle or something, because he gets shoved.
So nimble.
He's a nimble son of a bitch. He gets shoved off the stage. Like it could have been more dangerous for him. I mean, he was just like rocking it off the stage. He pops right up and he's just like high-fiving and throwing metal horns up, and he walks right by me. For all he knows, I'm paralyzed. For all he knows, he doesn't even give me a second glance. He's just like, I did it.
He's so agile. Yeah. And then poor Zach also got injured, which of course is why we couldn't continue the shows.
Yep.
Do you know how he's doing, or if we're thinking there's going to be more shows in the future?
I was subjected to the same injury prior to the tour. I didn't, without a lot of fanfare, I ruptured my Achilles a year ago, Thanksgiving. And, in rehearsals was, on crutches for a while. And it takes about a year. It's a significant injury. It takes about a year to heal. And then, when you're of a certain age, there's only certain, you in your mind, you're still rocking like, at Cal State Northridge. And,
right.
For my sake, I just Googled, what sort of ankle braces does Steph Curry wear?
Right.
Those probably work, right? Those probably work.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah, so that was my kind of superpower during the tour, was wearing those.
I mean, do you think we're going to have more Rage shows in the future?
You got to ask Zach that question.
Okay.
If there's a Rage Against the Machine show, I will be there playing guitar. I
love that. We just were talking, it's been about 30 years since the start of Rage, and it's crazy to think 20 years with Audioslave.
Yes.
It's like unbelievable. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around that.
It's wild.
Also, Like a Stone just joined YouTube's Billion Views Club.
Yeah.
And has 500 million streams. I mean,
that's wild.
That whole album is magic. One of my favorite albums in my collection, period. What do you think it is about that song in particular, perhaps, that resonates so much with fans?
With Like a Stone? I mean, I have to say that the making of that whole record was pretty magical. It was in part, over the course of, Rage Against the Machine's first 10 years, we only made 3 albums of original music. And I'm tend to be a very prolific person. I had cassette after cassette after cassette of riffs and ideas and chord progressions and this, that, and the other. And Tim and Brad too, had nonstop ideas in that initial, in those first rehearsals with Chris Cornell. And Chris was so great and easy to work with. And while he had been a principal music writer in Soundgarden, he wanted to pull back. He just wanted to be a lyricist and a melody creator. So it gave us this really wide open field to, take these years of kind of pent up ideas and see what rose to the surface. And it was really, really great to every day go into rehearsal and you never knew what was going to happen. So Chris has had a very unique, I've had more than one, famous record producer tell me that Chris's ability to kind of conjure great melody just on the spot was something very special. Like very, very special. It's the kind of thing that like great songwriters have. Not always great singers have. Not always great
Right.
people in rock bands have. But that like great songwriters have is this instinctive inner melodic sense that if you threw at him a complicated riff or a simple chord progression like a stone, he would make something really beautiful out or terrifying out of it. It was pretty awesome.
I mean, Chris, you could speak to this. You were in a band with him for so long, but even just as a fan, just how unique he was to be so excellent at every aspect. If he just had that voice, that would be enough. If he just was a great vocalist, and then his poetry, his lyrics, his like you said, his innate gift for melody, his persona, how incredible he is as a performer. It's just almost like it's like the planet line.
And how damn good looking he was. He was blessed
and gorgeous, gorgeous.
He was blessed across the board, man. Like I was when I was in lockup and we were in that van, suffering in that van. If you've ever been in a band, the rule is like whoever's driving gets to pick the music, right? So when I was like it was those Soundgarden Sub Pop cassettes that were my thing then, and nobody in the band particularly liked it. It was too heavy and it was too kind of abrasive. But I just loved like. From day one, I couldn't believe. And here's the thing: like the Chris in particular, there's a number of artists, a short list, but he was at the top of that short list that redeemed metal in a way. And that, like, I had always been a fan of heavy metal music and loved from Dio to whatever, to AC/DC to Motley Crue to whatever. But I never like. The parts I liked about it were kind of like the music and the aggression and I wasn't always down with the lyrics. And the lyrics were either about groupies or they were about the devil. And I would like, neither of those things were a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And it felt in a way that while I got off on the music, that there was a part of who I was that was not represented in my favorite music until bands like Soundgarden and Jane's Addiction and Living Colour. There's a short list of bands that they had like really intelligent, poetic vocalists who were unafraid. Now, there were plenty of intelligent, poetic vocalists in non-metal. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right. But now these were guys that were unafraid to embrace awesome Led Zeppelin riffs and big, heavy jams and guitar solos, but not be afraid to be smart. And not be afraid to like have a deep sort of poetic inclination that they wore on their sleeve along with their Black Sabbath T-shirts.
Absolutely, yeah. Soundgarden were the gateway for me as well. 100%.
Yeah.
In addition to music and being a father and a husband, you somehow have time to do your radio shows, your podcasts, and also I watched the Metal Lords on Netflix.
Sure.
I watched that, which you did with D.B. Weiss, co-creator of Game of Thrones, of course. But that movie is awesome. The cameos that you guys make, so fun.
Super fun.
How do you find time to do all of this stuff? And is that just sort of like this innate drive in you to keep creating?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a pretty big motor on me. And, one of the things that I love doing when I'm on tour is after the show or on nights off, I'll go to some metal club and DJ. And I just love kind of inflicting my musical taste on others. And so doing I started doing the radio show during the pandemic where everybody had time. And it was a way I'm always making playlists anyway. So why not kind of inflict those on the listeners there? They were cool. Like they'd approached me a couple of times about it. And I was always too busy or didn't feel right. And I said, here, it's pretty simple. Like if I can play anything I want to play and I can say anything I want to say, I'll do it. And they were like, Perfect. Cool. So, what I love is like sometimes people are, I've got one show on Lithium and another show which rotates, which is like the 90s alt station. And then another show that kind of rotates each week. It might be on Ozzy's Boneyard or the EDM, depending on what I've curated for that week. And people get so mad, like when, on the Lithium stage, because I'll play Sabbath, I'll play Johnny Cash, and then I'll play Soundgarden and that stuff too. But like somebody's so like why doesn't Morello just stick to Spin Doctors? And I'm like,
that's amazing.
No disrespect, but you're not going to hear Spin Doctors during my album. You're not going to hear it. You're not going to hear it.
It goes back to that authenticity. You can only play what you want to hear.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, we are going to do a final round. I call it my
Okay.
deep cuts.
Okay.
Just a good Q&A section.
Okay.
Okay. Name a song, album, or artist that changed your life.
There's a number of them. I'll start with Peter Gabriel's song "Biko" about South African, it was the Martin Luther King Jr. of South Africa who peacefully protested against the racist apartheid regime, was killed by the cops, and Peter Gabriel wrote a beautiful song about his life and his spirit, and it was one of the things that helped galvanize world opinion against apartheid that led to people pressuring their governments to boycott, which helped lead to the eventual downfall of apartheid. So it really was a song that changed the world. If you haven't heard it,
Wow.
you want to check that one out.
I need to go back now and listen to that
Yeah, it's
immediately.
beautiful.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
it's
that.
beautiful. Yeah.
Your first concert.
Well, that'd be Kiss, 1977 at the Chicago Stadium. I was very excited. They were my favorite band. I bought a ticket at Ticketron. I waited in the line in the cold, and I bought a ticket. I was there. The morning tickets went on sale, and my ticket said a partial view of Kiss, which I assume meant it was going to be some sort of introspective look into their into their poetic souls. It meant that my seat was behind a pole. And it was still the most exciting 2 hours I had experienced in my life, and it made me go, "Hallelujah, rock and roll's for me."
You didn't even need to see it; you could just feel
I
it.
had to look around. I had to look around the pole to see Gene breathing fire and whatnot. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite movie?
It's a good question. Yes, I do. I'm gonna say yes because you're asking me this question. There's two, and I'm gonna say them both because they're
Okay.
one is I really love I love the Lord of the Rings movies, and the Return of the King is awesome. It's a movie we all sort of sit around and watch around the holidays every year, and it's just the young Dungeons and Dragons player in me loves that movie. But if I dig deep, if like you really want to know what my favorite movie is, I'll say my favorite moment in any movie is the end of the movie Babe, where the pig silently rounds up the sheep and they win, and it's like I got taken to that movie, when it first came out, and I was like, I am not going to a damn movie about a damn pig. Stop it.
Stop it right now.
I have rock to play. I have governments to topple. I've got a busy life, and I'm not watching a movie about a damn pig. Anyway, I was convinced to go see that movie, and at the end of it in the theater, I believe I stood up. I'm like, yeah,
standing ovation,
right on, babe.
Wait, that is incredible, Tom. That is amazing. Okay,
I've seen it 1,000 times since.
Do you have a favorite meal or cuisine?
Yes, my favorite meal is white cake batter, which many might think disgusting, but it's so delicious.
If by disgusting you mean delicious, yes.
By disgusting, I mean the greatest taste you could ever have in your mouth.
Yes, I'm with you. I'm a big baker, so I love that answer.
Incredible.
If you were not a musician, what would you be?
Well, I mean, I have a big side of myself, which is not a musician, which is sort of doing the social justice activism thing. And so I would, I'm already doing that. So if I had to put down the music, I would, instead of just playing guitar at these rallies, I would probably just be, speechifying, Fred Hamptoning these rallies.
Got it. Yeah. Do you collect anything?
I don't currently collect anything.
Guitars, maybe?
No, I'm not a guitar. I have some guitars, but they're either the guitars that I've had for 40 years, or like sometimes you get gifted guitars, and those are around. But I'm not one of those guys that's like, here's a Fender 59 that I spent $500,000. Like I don't care. My guitars are like all from the land of misfit toys.
Aw. Yeah. So do you have like a prized possession, like maybe something in particular?
I do have a prized possession. I do. It is growing up, I was a big fan of horse racing. There's a lot of preface this by saying there's a lot of cruelty in that sport. I think they probably shouldn't do it anymore. But my favorite athlete as a kid was Secretariat, the racehorse. That was my favorite athlete as a kid.
Aww.
Other people like Jordan or this one or Hank Aaron and Secretariat. And years later, my friend Shooter Jennings, who's Waylon Jennings' son, Waylon was friends with the person with the owner of Secretariat and had something tucked away in a closet and so Shooter gifted me for some birthday. I think it might have been my 40th birthday. It's a lock from Secretariat's mane, and it's pretty awesome.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
huge.
So if somebody's listening to this and you don't know, you think this is crazy talk, I'm going to say two things which are crazy. One is one of my principal artistic influences as an artist, I'll say as an artist as opposed to just a guitarist, is Secretariat.
Wow.
And it was I was looking when I was trying to find my own voice on the instrument. I tried to look beyond music for inspiration, and I found some in the comedy of Richard Pryor, in like the stunts of Evel Knievel, but particularly Secretariat. There's a thing called the Triple Crown, which is like the famous 3 horse races. Mm-hmm. Secretariat holds the record in each of it's the greatest athletes perhaps of all time. But in the Belmont Stakes, the final one, something happened which sort of defies explanation. It was a supernatural event. The horse won by 31 lengths, which is kind of like someone scoring 200 points in a basketball game or something. Like, right. And I remember watching that as a kid, and everyone in the room and in the stands were crying. It wasn't that it was the greatest thing, the greatest creature doing that sport. It was someone that destroyed the idea of what the sport was. And I thought, that's what you aim for in your art.
Wow. Or be a guitarist and create your own sound. That's just unique to you, Tom.
That's the same ball.
Yeah. Really cool.
Aiming for that.
That's amazing. I guess I want to ask what you hope to achieve next.
Well, right now I'm figuring it out. This has been an interesting time. I love playing guitar. I love creating music. I love attending my kids' basketball games. And the world, the world needs changing, and I fully realize that doesn't happen on its own. And so using my, the arrows that I have in my quiver at my disposal, my art and my whatever else I've got, to try to continue to move the needle towards a more peaceful and just planet.
Oh God, Tom, I'm grateful for you. You inspire me on multiple levels. You are a beautiful, beautiful human being. I talk about you all the time. If only you heard about how I speak about you. So I'm just telling you, you're amazing, and thank you always for everything you do.
Well, I'm a big fan as well, and I think that I've said it before, and I'll say it again, but that just your essence is just so important in the world in a time where, again, it's important, like as fans of rock and roll, which you and I are, and we believe that this is such a great art form that is no longer clogging the top of the charts like it once did. And there's part of me that realizes that you have to recognize the value in the things that come after you and get out of the way in a way. You got to get out of it. You can't just be like, man, Foghat's the only band that will ever matter, and you kids are just too stupid to realize it.
Exactly.
There's that gene in every generation. Like, it's ridiculous what these kids are listening to. But at the same time, there is nothing like that experience, whether you are creating it, of like stepping on that distortion pedal or the sound of that electric guitar, whether you're creating it or whether you're experiencing it on the other hand, of that electric feeling of tribal togetherness with like rock and roll occurring. That's a brand new thing. When that first happened with, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, etc., it's the first time the planet had known anything like that. It tapped into something very, very deep in our reptilian core that feels like the truth. It feels like the way we should be living. And all the other stuff that we do is kind of like, we need to figure out a way to make that the world, where we're feeling as fulfilled and as together as we do when something like a great rock and roll concert is happening.
Amen. Amen to that. Amen to that. Awesome, Tom. Well, that's all I got for you.
All right. Well, thank you. It's lovely to see you.
Tom Morello, everyone. He just deserves a round of applause because he is a gift to interview. He is a gift to have as a friend. He is such a great conversationalist. I'm grateful for him and all of his contributions to music and humanity. Yes, I love him that much. I hope you do too. It is time for this week's sound advice. New music you need to know. You can find it on the Allison Hagendorf Show playlist, and the link to that is in the show notes. I'm kicking off this week with the band Sleep Token. The song is called The Summoning. I've been following this band for a couple of years. They are anonymous. They are masked. Frontman goes by the name Vessel. And this is for fans of metal, metalcore, alternative metal, whatever you want to call it. The vocals are beautifully melodic. This song is very driving and dynamic. Next up is Bob Vylan with the song The Delicate Nature. I love this duo from London. They incorporate elements of hip hop, punk, indie, all into a sound all of their own. This song features Laurie Vincent from Slaves. They're an incredible live band. Definitely check them out. I also want to feature this week the latest from Swim School and their song Delirious. Now, this one talks about the misogyny that frontwoman Alice Johnson has encountered. It's a very powerful song. Their EP Duality comes out later this year. This is definitely a new band that needs to be on your radar. Also, I must feature the guys in You Me at Six and their song Heartless. These guys cite Blink-182, Incubus, Thrice, Arctic Monkeys, all as influences. They just put out their 8th studio album called Truth Decay. Give that one a listen. All of these, along with the latest song from Tom Morello and Måneskin, their song Gossip, which Tom and I talked all about, will all be on the Allison Hagendorf Show playlist. The link is in the show notes. And let me know what new music you're feeling. Thank you so much for being part of the Allison Hagendorf Show. New episodes drop every single Friday, so make sure you follow and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. You can find the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can watch the show on both YouTube and Instagram. I would love to hear from you, so please rate, review, comment, like, whatever you're feeling, and reach out to me on socials at Allie Hagendorf. I would love to connect with you. Thanks again. I'll see you next week, and remember, you're a rock star.